Hello everyone. I today just wanna, every day I'm just sharing what's on my mind, and I've been meaning to read the Bible for a while because I was just so. I think it is. I think it's intentional that schools are so. If you're brought up in a Catholic school, like for me, I'm just speaking about my own experience. I just feel so disconnected to God. Um, and so forced to believe what they were saying, even though no one practiced what they were preaching. Um, it just pushed me the other way, big time, and I think that might be intentional. And also, I've always had this because I've just got I've had a bit of a blockage with um, the Catholic religion and even Christianity. I mean, it's still to this day, I don't agree with how many Christians think it's the only way. That doesn't make sense to me. But I have actually been wanting to read the Bible for a long time. And anyway, I bought the Bible and an audio book. And honestly, I listened to, no exaggeration here, by the way, I listened to the first 5 minutes, just 5 minutes of the text. And I wrote so many insights down. So in this video, I want to touch a little bit on my insights, and I also want to touch on this concept of jinn or archon or draconian parasitic mind that is what the those who control the world, the very small few, what they worship and how it works in our daily life. Okay, so first I'm going to touch on what I got from the Bible. Okay, it's not a lot, but it blew me away. So first off the back, I if you don't know me, I 2016 I watched a presentation by Michael Tellinger. I was doing a lot of research back then for the presentation. I shared a presentation. I went around Australia, presenting a presentation I put together that used the latest scientific research to prove that we have a genuine solution for world peace, which is collective meditation. And in my research, Michael Tellinger, I was researching a lot of his stuff. Okay, now I'd heard this rumor of flat Earth. Okay, and I was like, wow, that seems a bit mental, and I just left it at that. And my mate who I spoke to when I first spoke about it, he said there was this rumor of the Earth being flat again, and I was like, what? And he said, yeah, it's like a disc floating in space, and I was like, fucking what? That's mental. But then, and I forgot about it. Maybe it was probably about 12 months later, but still in 2016, I watched Michael Tellinger give a presentation on a few different things, on harmonics and sound, and things like this. And then he started talking about the flat Earth, and his presentation blew me away, resonated with me, and made a lot of sense. And I realised that they're not talking about a flat disc floating in space. And I'm not. This isn't a flat Earth video. I'm not going to go into this. So I started looking into flat Earth, and I probably spent about 20, maybe 30 hours on it. Okay, and made a lot of sense to me back then in 2016. And I heard Michael Tellinger turn around, and Michael Tellinger said, "I'll never talk about it again," he said, because he's pushing the Ubuntu movement, which is a beautiful movement which I support as well. And he said the negative feedback and abuse that he's had from his own followers for talking about a flat Earth, he said has put too much. It's too detrimental for the Ubuntu movement. He said, so unless I speak personally to a few open-minded people, he said, I'll never ever talk about the flat Earth again. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But at that time in my life, I was at a point where I thought, right, okay, that makes sense to me, but right now, it's not as important to me as sharing that there is a universal solution for peace. So then in 2017, I think it was, me and my family, we got rid of everything, jumped in bought a school bus, converted it, went around Australia, and we gave over 50 free presentations and set up a few meditation groups around the place, and so on and so forth. At the beginning of 2020, I went to visit a friend in Tasmania, and I got stuck there for 3.5 months. And when I was there for 3.5 months, my mate phoned me and he said, "Do you know Santos Bonacci's?" And I said, "Yeah, I know Santos. I haven't looked at his work for years, but I know who he is. I used to like a lot of his stuff. He's a great researcher." And I said, "Why?" He said, "I've just listened to him on an interview." And he said, "I knew you'd be into him." So I had a little look at who my mate listens to. And I found the interview that he watched. And then when I watched it, I was like, wow, Santos is on Flat Earth. And Santos shared some awesome things in that interview. So I started looking into Flat Earth again. And what was fascinating between 2016 and 2020, I couldn't find any of the Flat Earth videos that I was watching in 2016. And I thought, well, that's interesting. If they're seriously censoring the real Flat Earth researchers, and there's many of them, that's interesting. The only one, if you type into YouTube or something, you're just going to find anyone that's against it. You're going to find the Flat Earth Society, which is a controlled opposition, and you're also going to find just idiots talking about it, okay? Who are just purposely trying to make it look ridiculous. That's always a sign for me, okay? So I had to start from scratch. I really had to dig deep to try and find who's really researching this subject. And then since then, I reckon I've spent 200-300 hours on the subject. And now I've realized it's literally the biggest conspiracy, okay? Now, I'm only talking about that because the second I started listening to the Bible, the first part is Genesis, okay? Within 2.5 minutes, God separated. Now, I knew this anyway, because I knew this research, but I'd never read the Bible. So as soon as I listened to it, it was like God says that he separates the waters below from the waters above, which is the same model in the Ayurvedic, in many other traditions, right? In like the Hopi, the Navajo, and things like this. Created the firmament where the heavens reside, the heavenly bodies, okay, the stars, the wandering stars or whatever. And he gave our earth 2 luminaries, 2 bodies that are lights, okay? Now, if you understand the forces who control this world, the small few, their religion is to completely invert the truth. So if they're going to invert the truth on everything else, why on earth would they tell us the truth about one of the most fundamentally important points of our existence is where we live, our location in this reality? So they say that space is a vacuum. The unified field, I'm not saying there's no space, it's the space so we can move around. There is a field. And there is a unified field, but that unified field isn't empty, it's filled with everything. It's not a vacuum, okay? And I've made a video on this, and I've seen another recent presentation from Michael Tellinger, again, good on him, where he's talking about space. And he's saying, I can't believe scientists still, if they're not in this, because a lot of scientists are on board, but he said, I don't know how they're stiff, if you're not on board, how you're buying this idea that the atmosphere just moves from an atmosphere to empty space without a barrier.
The simple basic physics of a vacuum in space just doesn't work. For any scientist that actually just think about this, or physicist, the whole thing of vacuum in space is just not compatible with any kind of physics formula or physics that we can put to it. Where does the vacuum begin? Vacuum is one of the most powerful forces of nature. Where does that vacuum begin? What you can't do in space or in a vacuum, what you can't do in infinite vacuum is you can't propel sound, You can't have explosions, fire, propulsion, jet engines, rockets, none of this stuff. Can't do that because there's nothing to propel against. And then you start watching like SpaceX sending a rocket up into space, and the very well-trained presenter that's got all the buzzwords. She knows all the lingo and all the buzzwords. And at one stage I was watching and she says, and the rocket is about to enter the vacuum of space. Really? And millions of people are watching this and they believe this. You see, they just, oh, the rocket just entered the vacuum of space. Where? How did it, where? Please frickin' explain that to me. In scientific terms, not in BS terms. Oh, you won't understand it. No, please try me. I want to understand this. Explain to me where that vacuum begins.
Having seen hundreds of rocket firings when I was employed by Rocketdyne, I know that the jet of the lunar module lander, the lunar lander, would have created an enormous crater. It would have scoured the moon's surface. It would have tossed up rocks, sand, everything, and created a crater maybe so large that the entire lunar lander could have sunk into it. After all, we're dealing with a 10,000-pound thrust engine, which is pointed directly at the surface, lowered into the surface, and yet, if you look at pictures of the lunar lander on the moon, there is no disturbance whatsoever under the lunar lander's rocket.
Cola carbonated beverage here at 2.5 atmospheres, somewhere deep below the sea. This you should never try at home, shaking up your Coke, because you know what's bound to happen when you take your Coke and you open it up and it sprays all over the room. Didn't happen. Look at that. That's physics in motion right there. Archimedes' principle or Boyle's law or something like that. Yeah.
Ohm's law, Pythagoras.
Ah, got a nice little fizz.
A plus B
All right.
squared plus B squared
Here we
equals
go.
life goes.
What are the advantages of living under the ocean?
God says there's both lights, okay? We say that the sun, the moon's light is the sun reflected from it. Now, this isn't a flat earth video, so I'm not going to go into like small details. But flat earthers know that if you measure the temperature of the moonlight, if you have a shade, like say this is nighttime, and this is the shade, and this is the moonlight, right? If the moonlight is reflecting from the sun, it would be warmer. That's not the case. So when they actually put digital thermometers on here, the moonlight is colder than the shade. It's giving off its own light, and it's a polar opposite to the sun. God says this in the Bible. God says, I'm giving you two luminaries that give off their own light. When we look at the Buddhist teachings, when the Buddha was about reached enlightenment, one level of his enlightenment, he was so, he rejoiced because he realized that everything had Buddha nature. Now remember, Buddha isn't the name of a being, it means the awakened one. It means, you could translate it as God essence, okay, pure, inherent goodness. Now this is what God says in the Bible. He says, God saw that all is good. So Buddhists say everything has Buddha nature, like a dirty glass. Okay, the dirty glass, you may think that's old dirty glass, but if you cleaned it 100%, once the dirt's off, you are left with a fundamentally perfect good glass. And that's the situation of all living beings. We are stained by our past karmas and mistakes, but we're all fundamentally good. Okay, once we clean that karma, God says the same thing in the Bible. God saw that all is good, all things are good. Then God said he created man in his image, and so man can create. We do create, okay? If you look at Lao Tzu says there is 4 great forces in the universe. The earth is one, heaven is one, the Tao is one. But he also says human beings are one, okay? if you look at these mantras like Tien Di Ren Hui, what are they saying? Or even Ren Di Tien Dao Shen Qi Jing Hui. Both of them mean, Tien Di Ren Hui means heaven, Mother Earth, and human beings. Okay, so the mantra is acknowledging that human beings are a force, a benevolent, positive, powerful force in creation. Okay, Rendi Tien Dao Hui, for example, is human beings, Mother Earth, heaven, Dao, join as one. Okay, some of these mantras. So Buddha and Lao Tzu, Buddha said, the reason humans are special is because one, their level of consciousness is able to reach Buddhahood, meld with Tao, align with God, able to put all beings before themselves. Okay, this is why the human being is acknowledged as being a special being in creation. And this is what the Bible says. The Bible says God created man in his image and he's good. It's also said that human beings' role, right, is to look after God's earth, look after all the creatures. Also talks about everything we need is here. Nature provides everything. The earth provides everything. When we look at that, when we look at all the herbs and all the water and everything that God gave us, which is natural, which is key to health, when you look at this system that these small few have created, it is a complete opposite of that. It's a reverse of that. It's a chemical way to health, which is making more and more people sick. Okay, it's vaccines. It is, polluting the water, thinking that we need chemical farming on our soils, and this absolute ludicrousy. Okay, it's an invasion. It's literally the opposite of what God talks about us. God created for us, and it's a destruction of the earth. It's actually, I've said this many times, the vow that these beings have to make to be a part of this small few is they have to vow to destroy what God made. They do that through the ego. They do that through destroying the earth, destroying health, destroying people's relationships. Everyone's scared of each other. And again, when you look at, in fact, they destroy it by believing that science knows more than God. Science knows more than this beautiful immune system that we've been blessed with, and that's kept us alive and through such incredible harsh environments for thousands, if not millions of years. And then we go to God breathed the breath of life into man and gave man the soul or spirit. Okay, now think about that. What are we all doing now? Covering the breath. Okay, covering. This is exactly the opposite to what God did. God breathed life into us, and this is cutting off our fundamental life force. Just think about this. Food, very important. But how long can we go without food? Maybe few weeks, maybe longer, maybe months. Some people are not eating at the minute. You've got breatharians or whatever they're called. They breathe. You look at, next is water. Okay, we need water. Water, we could say, is more important than food, because water, we are 90% water. And but how long can we go without air? Okay, oxygen is the most important. Okay, most people can go less than 5 minutes before they pass out. Let's say 10 minutes. Okay, you can go days, maybe weeks without water, possibly, but you're only going to go a few minutes without air. So look at this. It's anti-life. It's killing life. It's cover your mouth. Okay, so a lot of insights into the Bible, but I'm going to switch topics now. This parasitic, reptilian, archon, demon, jinn, whatever you want to talk about it, this negative, demonic force. I listened to an interview with a guy who was from Islam, studied Sufism. I think he's left the Islamic faith now, but he's pretty much like a fly solo now. But he shared some interesting points. A lot of them are new because of, David Icke's been talking about these for a long time, but I got a lot of insights. But he's basically saying in Sufism and in Islam, they talk about an entity in your head. It's called the jinn. This is here to destroy your life. Okay. Now, some people have it more than others. My teacher, to link it, I would say that my teacher would say that's dependent on your karma, how strong this voice is. But don't worry about that, because I'm going to talk about this in detail. All your negative thoughts, all perverted thoughts, all self-defeating thoughts, voices in your head that make us feel bad. Like when I look at my son, sometimes he'll say in bed, like when he starts thinking, he'll say, he hasn't done it for a while, but he went through a little phase where he was like, Dad, I've just thought about this that happened today, and it would be nothing, you know what I mean? And he went, I just feel really guilty, like maybe I upset you when I said that, you know, and it'll really play on him. And this is what it's talking about, that voice that makes you feel bad, because who are you? Who is the you that feels bad? It's this God essence, Buddha nature, which is one with God and is the one essence that is inherently good. It's compassionate, okay? But this voice makes you feel guilty. It's the shadow, okay? Now, the insight I got from this is, when we look at the Illuminati, or the Cabal, should I say, they have the black eye. Type in Illuminati black eye. You'll see Prince Philip. You'll see Robert Downey Jr. You'll see the Pope. They all have a black eye. And this is to say that they choose the violent path. Okay, and there's yin yang in this world. It's not to be afraid of. But what I got an insight is they worship the ego. They worship the voice in the head that is of negative origin. And this is, they do this instead of worshipping that true divine essence, the goodness in you. But there's certain things that can trigger this voice in the head, and they know that, and that's the news. This is why that voice is attached. The bigger the ego in the person, the more they're attached to negativity, the more they're attached to negative news. They can't turn off the telly. They also can't spend any time alone. You think about people who literally cannot be with themselves for 5 minutes in silence. They've got to put a movie on. They've got to put a violent movie on. They've got to put porn on. They've got to put something that stops them being alone. Because as soon as they're alone, this voice starts torturing them, right? And they don't want to be alone. They're terrified of it. So what they do is they feed it with negativity, with violent movies and so on. The news feeds this part of the brain, this part of the mind, and it's self-destruction. It's self-destroying, because these entities don't like human beings, okay? Because we are so connected to God. This is why a lot of people believe that they mine monatomic gold, because monatomic gold has benefits that can help them do things. They are physical beings, but they've mastered wavelength technology. They use monatomic gold. So there's another avenue I'm not going to go down in this video. But they can't genetically reach high levels of spiritual attainment. They are typically demonic beings, low hell beings, okay? And they feed off human energy. And they don't have the ability to create, okay? So this is why they point humanity in a direction that they want us to create, and then humans create the world that they want, okay? And that world is a world where we are constantly in fear and negativity and anxiety, because they feed off that. Here is a picture of a movie, and I've shared this multiple times in a few of my videos, a movie called The Wake Up. Okay, a young man whose spiritual channels open up, and he goes on a journey to try and find answers. And he goes to a guy who uses Kirlian photography, which picks up high sensitive energy cameras, gets him to meditate, and they see an image of like a demonic face in front of his neck. And this is interesting. And he said, I see them all the time. What are they? And he just says, he doesn't say they're reptilians, he says they're extraterrestrials who feed off negative energy. Now remember, The word alien, if you break it down, is a lie in the collective consciousness. We are directed to look to the stars. Reptilians are from out there. I don't believe that's the case. I believe they are demonic entities that are below us. This is why they dig out the ground below us. Okay, this is why they come up, parasitic, pollute our minds, and make the ego attached to matter. What do we want? We want more cars, more jewels, more women, more houses, because we attach to a hell realm. We attach to our goods. But when you die, this is in Buddhism, this is why you have to detach from everything, be naked again, and be so detached from this world that when you die, or even Tibetan rainbow body doesn't even wait till you die, you can move up. You can phase out, okay? You can move in the direction of detachment and towards God. Whereas matter, okay, keeps us earthbound. We can't take it with us. But when people die and they're so afraid of the unknown because they've spent zero time on their own or in silence, they cling to form. People are actually dying and clinging to a hell realm. This is why in Zen tradition they say, when you die, you let go of the body like you let go of an old pair of shoes. You just go. You just go, okay? And this is why we always support our loved ones who are dying by saying, it's been a beautiful experience, travel well. Never make them feel they have to stay somewhere they can't stay, because their soul can become a hungry ghost, get lost in this hell realm. Also, by coming up and perverting us, okay, we use sexual energy as a pastime through watching porn, masturbation, and perverted sex. They feed off that energy, okay? Our energy leaks downward. But every spiritual tradition talks about how to use sexual energy to enlighten the body, move us upward, okay? So in this documentary, you'll see that the demon in his throat. Now that's a very important thing as well, because they feed off that energy center. This is getting too long, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but there's a reason why they feed off this energy center. The true spiritual path is a courageous path. Not like, look at me, I'm so brave because I meditate. That makes no sense at all, and that's the ego. But to be able to stop and look within and see our mistakes and see what we've done and see all of our mess, right, within, and be able to forgive and move on for the benefit of all beings. It's hard work. I've done things I'm deeply ashamed of in the past, okay, when I was younger. But we also have to realize that that's not me now. That was me then. And I was suffering for me to do what I did. And if we look at the Buddhist perspective, okay, the Buddhist perspective, if we look at a practice like Vipassana, right, Vipassana is 10 days of silence, 10 hours a day meditation. You can meditate in your own time outside of those 10 hours. That is to fundamentally sit and not run away, and completely be at one and observe where you're at. Observe this voice for what it is. And that's the fascinating thing about it, because in my opinion, that's the best way. Because the second we say, F this voice, right, and I'm going to fight this voice, that's coming from that voice. We don't have to even fight this system. We just have to see it for what it is and mature out of it. If a kid called you fat and they were 6 years of age, you wouldn't say, I'm going to fucking beat that kid up if you're 40. You with me? You're going to say, that's okay, mate. That's all good. God bless you, right? You might even have a chuckle, because there's a maturity there. There's a more of a, you're the adult in the situation. You get me? So this is the same thing. We have to know who we are, be adults about it, and just observe it. When we look at Buddha's enlightenment, when he sat down after he tortured himself for 10 years, punished his body, realized he needed to find balance, he then sat down and made a vow under the tree that he's not going to stand up until he has the answers to life. And if it means him die, then he'll die. And his meditation was so deep and his vow was so sincere that he reached enlightenment. But before he did, Mara, who's depicted as the devil, threw everything at him. Okay? He tried to seduce him with his 4 daughters. Then he opened up hell, basically. And armies of black elephants with demons on them and everything, and arrows just come swarming towards him. And Mara said, who's going to even know you did this? And this is why he's depicted with one hand touching the earth, because he said, the earth is my witness. And what happened was he realized that everything was from within him. All these desires were from within him. Okay, it was an internal battle. And when the hells come towards him, he was one with everything. He wasn't a separate being fighting this evil. He was one with everything. Therefore, he wasn't there. He basically was just nothing, okay? And by doing that, all of this darkness, by the time it reached him, turned into butterflies. And he lost all attachment to the earth, all fear, all attachment, all anxieties, thought, everything he lost, okay? So it's a beautiful lesson for everybody. It's a beautiful lesson for me. Don't run from this thought in your head. Find out who you are. Find out that this voice is not you. And it's not a demon you've got to try and get out of your head, okay? It just takes conscious presence. But I'm telling you, if you guys love my videos or you like my videos and some of them make sense and you listen to this and you go, you know what, Nick, that's an awesome video. If you're not going to do the practice, you may as well block me. You may as well block me. And this goes for my family. This goes for all my family and friends. If what I'm sharing you love, but you won't do the practice, it's a waste of my time and yours. This is over 30 minutes, this video. What's the point in watching if you're not going to apply it? But yeah, just wanted to get that out today. I love you all very much, and take care. Bye bye.